Is that the right button? Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Joint Audit Committee. In order to assist in the process this evening, I must ask everyone to ensure that their mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode. We'd be grateful if you'd remain quiet while the meeting is in progress. And I'd like to remind everyone present, this meeting will be filmed by the Council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeat viewing. If you're sitting in the chamber, it's possible that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you're deemed to be consent to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. As the chairman of the meeting, I can at my discretion terminate or suspend filming if, in my opinion, continue to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if I consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision. There are no planned fire drills for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately via the emergency exit. Unfortunately, as the quorum for this meeting requires there to be representation from both councils, at the moment, although there are 3 members here from East Dorset, there are currently no members attending from Christchurch. We are expecting them, maybe they're stuck in traffic, but basically we can't proceed with the meeting unless we have at least 1 Christchurch member present. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we now have 2 members of the Christchurch Council here, so we can begin. My name is Councillor K.D. Johnson. I'm from East Dorset. To my right is Councillor David Jones from Christchurch, who's the Vice Chairman. I'd like to thank my glamorous assistant here for standing in for me last time when I was performing on stage at Ferndown. Without further ado then, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies from Councillor Mrs. Jones.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? Members are reminded that any disclosable pecuniary interest must be declared, including any issues which may arise through predetermination or bias. Pro forma are available for the members in the members' room. No, there are no declarations of interest, no interest at all. And now I'd like to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of September, which is the one, as I said, which was conducted in my absence. So can I have a proposal from somebody who was actually there, please? Thank you, Councillor Gina Logan, East Dorset District Council. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Abbott from Christchurch, seconded. And moving on, the business of the meeting. Sorry, Councillor Shortell, yes. Yes.
Just to draw attention to the minutes of the last meeting. I was on holiday, but I believe I did give my apologies to that effect, and it's not recorded.
So noted, thank you. Were there any matters arising from those minutes? I believe that Matthew Raudsep was tasked to conduct some further report, and he has a statement to make.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. At your last meeting, in response to an inquiry around sickness absence. Some figures were provided on sickness absence for the partnership, but I think there was a further concern raised around stress in particular, and that the decision made was that a report would be requested for the next meeting. I have to apologise, there's no report on your agenda today. That's mainly because the staff that would be involved in doing this kind of work are currently heavily involved in lots of other work connected to the setting up and preparation of the two new councils, particularly in relation to providing data and information that the two programmes require in advance of April. So for me to put more pressure on the team would ironically probably worsen the issue that you were particularly interested in. So I've had to I've not been able to make the progress that we would have hoped for this meeting. Indeed, at this particular point, I think there's a risk that creating more work of that kind is somewhat counterproductive, although we are obviously interested in what how our staff may be affected by the process they are going through. So I completely understand members' interest in the stress levels across the staff, but as things stand, the information that's been provided is all the information that we have available at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we understand that to put the officers under further stress in order to analyse what stress they're under would be a bit of a circular argument. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a little concerned. We were assured in this room by various members of what I would still tend to call the senior management team, that should local government reorganisation go ahead, that there would be plenty of capacity to do both the day job and all the preparations for LGR. Now, it does seem to me that we have a slight dichotomy there, because we're now being told that because of the preparations for LGR, the staff can't do the day job. Now, I would hope, I have some experience in industrial relations, having worked as a union representative or served as a union representative, and I know how much the stress can be of a reorganisation. I've seen it in a school, I've seen it in a public service department. And I know that we are now hopefully moving into somewhat clearer waters, because I understand that most of the staff have now been tupied to where they're going to go. So some of the uncertainty isn't there. Of course, there's the bigger uncertainty that when you get there, will they want you? In other words, are we putting off the evil day from the 31st of March to the 30th of May? Now, I did think that we did ask for this. It is something that we would like to hear a bit more about. I see our next meeting is in January. Yeah. I would hope that you'd be able to prepare some sort of comparable figures, because this might be useful, if not to us, either at Christchurch and East Dorset, but to our successor councils, because they will then start looking at an even more traumatic process of actually dishing out the P45s. So I would hope that we'll be able to get some information and look at this in further detail at our last meeting, which I don't think is the last one, but it'd be getting on that way. And I would like us to be able to show to the successor councils and to the workforce that actually, yes, we are concerned about this.
Do you want to come back on that, Matty?
Through you, Chairman. I think certainly our staff have more certainty than they did before in relation to which council they will be tutored to. They're not tutored obviously until the very last moment, but that certainly gives them a clearer idea of which organisation they will end up working for. They are now being communicated directly according to that council, which council they're going to, because obviously the messages may well be different and the timescales for change and all sorts of other information may be different. So that's probably clearer for staff. It is indeed stressful, these moments. It's undoubtedly going to be. Just to reassure members that both programmes are carrying out engagement with staff, again doing it in their own way, but they're trying to communicate with staff about how the process will progress. And part of those conversations around the transfer and what it means and what's involved and so on and so forth, there is information around support for staff. Now, some of that is the support that we already provide our staff. If they are feeling anxious or in difficulties, then there are opportunities and there's a process to follow which we can hopefully help them with. But both programmes are very conscious as well that we need to ensure that stress levels are kept in a manageable level, notwithstanding this is a difficult and challenging period that staff are going through. I can do some work on this, but I'm just trying to make sure that I just want members to realise that there's only so much we can delve into this, because when staff are ill, they tell us so much about what that illness is, and that's why they get categorised against stress or depression. In general terms, they don't always give us an awful lot of information, and they don't necessarily need to. So there's only so far we can go, and I'm currently not quite clear on how far we can make comparisons on specific kinds of illnesses or absences with other authorities. So again, I'm sure there is some information out there that will be useful, and I can look for that. But as I said, I'm just trying to avoid it becoming a big piece of work, because ultimately if that's not me doing it or somebody else doing it, and that will simply add to the list of things they have to do. Going back to Councillor Jones's first issue, comment about whether there was enough capacity to deal with business as usual and change, I think it is generally true that staff are having to balance both, and we're in a rather unique position. We're managing the process for two programmes, not one. All the other councils pretty much are only giving information for one LGR programme. Our staff are having to contribute information and data to two, sometimes different data, different forms and all sorts of things. So that's quite challenging. The programmes themselves, certainly BCP programme has identified backfill, a resource that the Shadow Executive agreed, and that can be useful. We can tap into that, but I'm sure you're all aware sometimes bringing somebody in for a short period of time to backfill, sometimes it takes you as long to get that person up and running and doing the work than it is to just keep trying to do it yourself. And so in many cases, staff are just trying to keep doing it themselves, trying to keep the balance, and we're obviously concerned that staff have got a workload that is manageable, and so we're trying to keep an eye on that as well. So back to the original question, if members want further information, and obviously you did last time, then we can try and bring about a bit more information. We're just trying to make sure that's not an extensive piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
To you, Chairman. Yes, I quite understand the difficulties, but again, I know that when we were talking about the wonderful possibilities of LGR and whether we should have option 2B or option 2C, nobody actually from outside the members in this council, and possibly from East Dorset, raised the point that actually 2B would involve a heck of a lot more work than 2C, and the costs of unscrambling the highly successful partnership that we have, not just in monetary terms, but the costs in extra stress, despite the fact that we had raised it, seemed to have not been brought to the attention. Maybe the outcome might have been different if it had. One further thought, and this is a constructive suggestion. In the days when we had best value and that sort of thing, one of our comparator councils was Fylde Borough Council, which by sheer coincidence I have some familiarity with in a previous life. And if that council was then thought to be reasonably similar, it might be if we just approached them and said, look, what sort of problems have you had with these absences? You might then be able to see the extra problem that has been caused as sort of as opposed to the underlying. I think there were 5 comparator councils, if I remember rightly, and possibly a quick letter or an email to their HR managers and just say, look, we are looking at this. Audit and scrutiny are making a big pain in the neck on this. Can you help us and give us some figures?
I think, with respect, David, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and but the experiences of East Dorset and Christchurch in this issue may well go on to be instructive on other councils across the country that are possibly undertaking a similar exercise, and that's one of the reasons why it would be useful to be able to see those stress figures. But just to put some background on this was originally raised to me by Councillor Ray Bryan, who is one of our cabinet members at East Dorset, because he also sits on the county council, and he got some figures from the county council about stress levels and so on, and sicknesses there, which he said were quite horrifying, and he was going to request a report from this council, and so I sort of preempted it by calling it on this committee a couple of meetings ago. But anyway, we'll put that beside if we can, if that's all right with you, unless you want to come back on that, Matty. No, David?
No,
finished, right? Okay, right. If we can move on then to item 4, which is the external auditors' fee letters. Now, are you going to speak to this, Dan? You can. Okay, thank you very much. Daniel Povey is the finance. What's your role, Dan? Just tell us your. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. I've got Sam Harding with me, who's our audit manager for Grant Thornton. So, yes, the external fees letters for the external audit next year. For the first time in the history of the Joint Audit Committee, we've got different fees letters for each council from different external audit providers. So the reasoning for that is the responsibility for completing the 2018-19 accounts will be with the new councils. So Christchurch accounts, the responsibility will be with Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and East Dorset with Dorset Council. For that reason, it's been the auditors have been aligned, so the same auditors audit the accounts of the predecessor councils as audit the accounts of what will be the new councils on the 1st of April. Okay, so it's just a pragmatic thing. It makes it easier for the completion of the audits. But for that reason, we've got a fees letter for Grant Thornton for Christchurch and one from Deloitte for East Dorset. In a nutshell, the fees are very similar. They're set nationally by public sector audit appointments who run the National External Auditor Appointment Scheme, which both councils are signed up to. And the good news is both councils have got a 23% reduction on the 18-19 fee, which amounts to about 10 grand compared to the previous year. That is probably enough of an introduction from me, Chairman, but we'll take any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dan on the audit fee letters? I might as well take them both together. They are both very similar, except for the fact that they come from different councils. My understanding, I believe, is that the reason for the reduction is due to the government's new audit regime or something. Can you just clarify that? Why they're cheaper?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think that's basically it. The national scheme which we opted into, where public sector audit appointments can tender for big blocks of work, covering big areas rather than individual councils, means that they've been able to achieve certain economies of scale. I think that's largely driven the savings. I don't know whether Sam's got any additional comments on that.
No, I think Dan's right. Yes, and I think there's probably a reduction sort of in sort of head office cost by PSAA as well as things have settled down with the transition.
Thank you. Well, I think all we need to do basically is to note those. I don't need, we need a proposal and a second or anything, do we?
Just do a show of hands.
A show of hands, accept those audit letters, right? Thank you. Yeah, that's unanimous then. And it's always good when it's £10,000 less than it was last year. Right, moving on to item 5 then, the progress made against high priority audit recommendations, and I'd like to welcome to the chair James Cranston.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. This is to update members on the progress made against the high priority audit recommendations and also the progress in our 18-19 audit plan. So the high priority recommendations that are outstanding are in Appendix 1, which is on page 21 of your report pack. I'm pleased to report that we've had no further high priorities come out of our audit since the last meeting in September. With progress against the 18-19 audit plan, this is in Appendix 2 and is on page 23 of your report pack. We've got 5 audits that are now complete and a further 10 in progress as at the 7th of November. Just to bring you up to date, as of today's position, we've actually got one more report in draft and we've also got another audit as work in progress. Also within the team, we welcome back Alex Thomas, who's our senior auditor. So she's now back from maternity leave. There's nothing else to report, so I'll take any questions.
Do I have any questions from the members, please? Councillor Shortell.
Thank you. It was mentioned that in fact some of the work in progress has now become a draft recommendation. Could you elaborate exactly which one that is, please?
For you, Chairman, it's the Community Facility Policy and Asset Management report is now in draft from Q1. Yes, that's right. The work in progress is the cash receipting and reconciliation. So that audit has now just started.
Thank you, Councillor Shortell. Yes, I was going to ask that question. I asked that question at the briefing and was told that by the time we got to this meeting, it may have gone to the final draft stage and whatever, and indeed it has. So thank you very much. That has gone according to plan. I'd like to welcome to the Chamber Councillor Harrison from East Dorset. Councillor Harrison has been caught up in traffic. He did keep us appraised. Thank you very much. We've just on to item 6, well, the final item actually, I think. Pardon? Oh, we haven't finished that one yet. Sorry, we've got something else to do. Right. So what have we got to do, Nikki? Oh, right. Oh, yes. Do you have any questions on the progress against high priority audit recommendations, which is agenda item 5? Okay, in which case I need a vote to approve that report.
So proposed, Chairman.
Proposed, Councillor David Jones, yes, and seconded David Shortell. Yes, thank you very much. Yes. All those in favour? Yes, unanimous. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to move on to item 6, which is the Treasury Management Report. And Daniel Povey, Finance Manager, back to the hot seat.
Thank you, Chairman. The Q2 Treasury Management Report just sets out for members the Treasury Management activity, the investments that the councils have made over the last quarter. Appendix 1 gives you the detail for Christchurch and Appendix 2 for East Dorset, but I think the main message really from the report is in paragraphs 3.3 and 3.4. Christchurch earned 21,000 in Q2 from its investment activities, average interest rate of 0.46%, and it has basically achieved the annual budget already of £37,500. For East Dorset, a similar interest rate as you would expect, 0.44%, achieved interest of just shy of £29,000, and to date has, in the last 2 quarters, has achieved £49,000 in total investment income against a budget of 56,000. So we certainly anticipate East Dorset also will meet, if not exceed, its target for that. I'll stop there, Chairman, and of course take any questions.
Do I have any questions from the floor? Councillor Jones.
Just to say, Chairman, that I think we owe the officers and people thanks for this, for making our money work quite hard for the people of Christchurch. I'm quite sure that about 7 miles from here there are another group of councillors and officers looking at this figure with ill-concealed glee. But at the moment, thank you very much for what you've done for Christchurch and also for East Dorset.
Thank you for that, Councillor Jones. Well, I will just ask the same question that I asked at the briefing, and I know what the answer is, but I just thought I'd do it for clarification. The Lancashire County Council loan, which we loaned them £2 million. The maturity date was stated at the 6th of November. Do we now have that money back?
Yes, we brought that money back. It's shown as outstanding in the report because, of course, it's to Q2, which is the end of September, but we've called that money back. So I believe now all of East Dorset's investments are either in the type of institutions you see listed there: Standard Life, Money Market, Debt Management Organisation, or our own bank.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones?
Just to say that 2 days ago, the 27th, was Lancashire Day, so that's I'm sure that the county will thank you for lending them the money.
Right. Well, I don't think there's any other business that essentially concludes the meeting. So thank you for coming. Unfortunately, Councillor Harrison missed the best bit, but that's the nature of the traffic problems between Christchurch and East Dorset, and hopefully we won't have to put up with those for that much longer. So thank you very much for coming, everybody, and thank you, the officers, for their reports. Thank you.